take a break until 9:30. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. This is House General and Housing, and today is Wednesday, April 23. What we're going to do starting at 9:30 is we're going to take testimony from on S-125, which is the Senate bill. It's kind of an omnibus bill on collective bargaining rights, et cetera. It's a labor bill. And we have 9 witnesses scheduled, which we will try to finish in the morning. Then we have lunch and the House floor, and we can either talk about the bill, or if we don't finish with the witnesses in the morning, we can see if any of them can testify in the afternoon. The witnesses that we've scheduled are designed, in a lot of ways to answer questions, really. They're designed to help us address the issues in the omnibus bill. I think, and we have,
Somebody just outside was talking.
Okay. The 2 other bills of significance that we're dealing with now are S-169, which is the act relating to prohibitions in housing and public accommodations relating to nationality and the status of immigration status. And we've had, just to remind you, we've had a lot of testimony. We've asked Cameron, our legislative counsel, to redraft the bill substantially, and the bill will come back to us tomorrow morning. Cameron's scheduled to do a kind of walkthrough, and we can have committee discussion. Since we will remember, we really were suggesting a major rewrite. It's not that it's going to be substantively that different, but a major rewrite. We want to address landlord concerns. We're trying to address issues around the banks, banking, and I think with some success. But the proof will be when we see the language. So we'll have the discussion markup, if you will, but I haven't scheduled a vote yet, because I don't think we necessarily want to vote the instant we've just seen the new draft. People may want to think about it a little. It's also, so that's 169. And I think 169, if we pass it, there are 2 possible fates. One is that if we pass it, is that it will go on its own, just go as 169. That's one possibility. The other possibility is, remember, the vehicle for our housing bill is the Senate bill. The Senate bill is 127. That's the bill that's the Senate analog to our housing bill. And we've talked about it. We've had a little testimony. Michael Dawn, for example, testified. And we have, I would say, a few minor issues around it, like everybody here seems sufficiently fascinated by the subject of the index, the community index, that you all wanted to hear more in your appetite for information. And so we are having, not that we would ever say no to an appetite for information, we're having Doug Farnham come testify. Magali, have we heard back from Doug?
Yes. He was testifying.
Oh, I see. 10 o'clock tomorrow. Great. So what we're trying to do this week on this housing bill is wrap up any last minute loose little stuff that we haven't done, so that we're ready next week to take the big chunk from House Commerce when it comes to us on the use of tax increment for various financing devices. Tax increment financing, and also hopefully, I'm hopeful, I don't know if it'll be there. I hope so, something on tax stabilization. So we'll see what they come with, but next week, we've got to hear it and vote this bill out, because this bill still has a trip. It still has to, once it gets out of here, it's got to go to Ways and Means. When it goes to Ways and Means and gets out of there, goes to the floor, we vote it out, it goes back to the Senate. So,
Do you know when our bill is coming back from the Senate?
I don't know yet, I'll know tomorrow. But what I hope we can do is just take the Senate changes and dump them into this one vehicle, so that there's, in the end, this one vehicle. I have to confess, I'm now in what's for me is uncharted territory. In other words, I haven't been the chair of a committee with a complex bill with two bills, and I'm working and getting guidance from leadership to help do it right, make sure it gets done right. But I do have a sense of urgency because, next Thursday is May 1. So, and in terms of S3, Prop 3, excuse me, not S, PR3, thank you. We all heard, we've had our hearing. I think it's just committee discussion, and we'll have that on Friday, and then we can vote on it next week.
If we're having committee discussion on Friday, if we could potentially vote on it on Friday too, because we can't make any changes.
We can't make any changes. There's been a request from leadership that we vote on it next Thursday. I think it's just because it's May 1, the symbolism of Labor Day. Why voting it out of this committee is such an important event that we should do it.
She wanted it on the floor.
She wanted it on the floor? Oh, well, then we ought to, why don't
So
you
we can
change
vote.
then? If that's the case, I'll find that out. I misunderstood.
Luckily,
Okay.
I already have it up for a possible.
Do you have it up for a possible vote? It says. Oh, great. Okay. All right, it's up for possible vote. I apologize. I had it wrong. Okay. Any just,
For Friday is the vote?
yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah. I mean, if that's the case, I misunderstood. Okay, I was gonna say I was somewhat mystified why it's so important that it gets voted out of a committee as opposed to the floor. Are there any thoughts, comments on the scheduling stuff? These are the three bills that I feel like we gotta pay attention to. It's not that there aren't gonna be other bills. There are other interesting bills out there that we can consider. And Debbie and I were talking about this. There's a certain advantage to our taking up a bill, and even if it isn't passed out, and even if it doesn't finish this session, at least it has a head start for next session. Compared to, let's say, some brand new piece of legislation where you have to start all over. Any final thoughts on just the schedule for the next few days? If anybody has thoughts about schedule that haven't occurred to you in this instant, come talk to me. Okay? Yes.
All right, so we are not meeting tomorrow afternoon at all?
Well, we don't know. Don't go away. Okay? Because what happens is the floor these days is very short. And so we have time after the floor. Question is whether there are witnesses available and whether counsel are available. But we can always have committee
I was gonna
discussion.
say, would you mind putting committee discussion there?
Yeah, we can always have just open committee discussion and talk about the bills that we've had. I can see where we might want to do that with, for example, 125. Anything else? It's been hard, by the way, I should just say, I would like to use the time after the floor. It's been a little hard because the floor is sometimes unpredictable, but also we found, Magali has found that it's hard to, sometimes it's just hard to get witnesses. We did have today originally two witnesses to talk about to continue the discussion of reuse of school buildings and to take that. So we may, that's something we can do. If we can reschedule those people, that's something we can do after floor. By the way, on the reuse, I'll just tell you my own feeling about that is I've asked a number of people in leadership, well, okay, when we finish taking testimony, what do we do with it? You know, it's not a bill. And one good suggestion was, and I really, is to think which committee should know what we learned and do a little report to them. And I know what that would be because it's all about money, right? And that's all about school construction. So our message would be, I mean, we'll take more testimony, but I think our message would be, when you think about school construction funding, you've got to think about reuse. Money for reuse as part of it. And so that would take the form of a memo to the Ed committee and the appropriation. Other thoughts? Okay, why don't we adjourn and then reopen at the hearing at 9:30. So please be here at like 9:25, so that we have a quorum.